Well, hello and welcome to another recording of the Social Media Newsroom. We are back with more news, tech content and wisdom from the world of social media. I say we because, of course, I am joined by the one and only Natalie 𝗪𝗲 from 𝗧𝗏𝗃 Media. Natalie, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back, Pascal. Super excited for this one.
And listen, I've looked at the show notes and yes, we're going to be covering a lot of things. Now, everybody knows by now we have 4 segments and the last one is Film Marketing Social Media Special. And I like to ask you to choose every time we do an episode together because I like to be surprised. And what have you gone for this time?
I have gone for the 1989, yes, it's as old as me, classic Batman.
It is a classic. Now, very quickly, between you and I, producer of viewers and listeners, did you see the movie The Flash and were you excited when Michael Keaton came back as the Batman?
Yes, absolutely. What a lovely kind of throwback reference for sure.
Now, everybody's thinking, hang on a minute, Batman 1989, there was no social media then. Now, what we're going to do is what we do typically when we choose an 80s or 90s classic. We actually invent a social media campaign. We're going to imagine for a moment that this movie is going to be released this summer, 2025. And what we would do, Natalie and I, our social media expert working for Warner Brothers, let's imagine, that we get the gig. What would be our recommendation to get audience to engage on social media? But before we do so, we're going to go for our spotlight. And this time we've chosen for you the Meta Marketing Summit. Lots to tell you. Then we're going to move on to our tech or tactic to try out, something that you should make a difference to all of you very busy social media marketers. And I always look forward to that one, the important, not important segment. I look for news and announcements. I read them out to you, Natalie, and you let us know whether it's important or not important, and we'll pick a couple for a bit more of a detailed discussion. So I hope that everybody is excited. Make sure you have pen and paper ready. If you don't want to look at all the segment, just fast forward using the timestamps in the description. But we're going to begin with the spotlight on Meta Marketing Summit just after this. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the Meta Marketing Summit. It took place a couple of weeks ago at the time of recording our review. And can I begin by just asking you, what is it about Meta and their events? Are they like top secrets? Like literally you have to be a special member or no special code or special handshake to know about them to begin with. But also, I was looking for some information, and if you Google Meta Marketing Summit, there's absolutely nothing out there on the interweb. What's going on?
Yeah, it is a really strange one. And to be honest, Meta has formed for this level of secrecy. To be fair, we were able to register for this one okay in the office this year, but the last one, in kind of 2024, where we did all try to register, it accepted our registrations and then kicked us all out, so we all had to re-register. So these are very much, I guess, barrier controlled access to what they are generally putting quite a lot of effort into content wise. So it is a little bit bizarre, but for a marketer these are still very much well worth tracking down and having a little look at.
For sure. Now, listen, it took me a while, but I did manage to find the URL to the official events at meta.com. So it is in the show notes. We're going to give you a quick overview. I would recommend that after that, do go on the page and register for the on-demand because it's well organized. The videos are not too long, actually, Natalie. I was really impressed with that. But, when you go on the landing page, all of you, you will see that you'd be greeted with a headline, "The Era of Performance and Possibility. Your opportunity for driving growth has never been bigger." Now, I always wonder about those events, if they start to keep going on and on about how this year is the year, then what happens the year after. But in fairness to Meta, and if you look at the last few years, they've always been very consistent. And I can't wait to hear your update. But this idea of there's a bit of a formula around interaction, advertising, vertical video, and social commerce. So yeah, over to you. What will be your main takeaway from the summit?
Yeah, so the summit was really nice. Like you say, Pascal, the sessions were a good length and they are all clearly labeled and segmented up. So if you do check this out, it's not a case of you've got to dedicate an entire morning to watching every single segment. You are actually able to pick and choose the ones that are most relevant to you, or even what order you would like to watch them in. So if you were enjoying the live broadcast, it does go segment into segment. But now when you are kind of going on for the recap, you can literally just choose which ones are most interesting. So interesting for me, I guess, was the kind of the forward from Nick Clegg, which was a little bit of an interview with him as he starts to prepare to step away from Meta. So actually really quite interesting to have an outgoing member of staff. I did notice that Mark Zuckerberg, possibly too busy with other US interests, but was kind of visibly absent from the Meta Marketing Summit for the UK audience at least. But definitely thought that conversation with Nick Clegg really opened up on an interesting note all around the balance of innovation and responsibility at the meta level of AI systems, but actually then even addressing that down on a business and marketer level of actually the opportunity versus the risk as we are kind of hurtling towards a more AI enhanced world. And I thought the framing that he put together, certainly for that particular interview, was really nice because it was all about the empowerment of using these new features and almost a bit of a kind of call to action around that really strong tagline of your opportunity for driving growth has never been bigger, to that actually these tools are here and they're here in a way that you can use them, and we're doing all the right bits behind the scenes to make sure we're doing the responsible thing. So really it's all about how you would like to use it. So there was lots of focus on the openness of their AI system, where they are drawing their information from, where they are utilizing it, and a bit of a kind of reassurance for audiences, which I thought was a really nice way to frame and open up. Then from there it was a little bit more of a deep dive into a specific tool or technique. I wonder where they got that idea from, Pascal. As to how these elements can really help enhance your marketing strategy, and a good mix of panel discussions and direct to camera delivery. So for me, actually all in quite high production value and quite an enjoyable watch, plus then loads of geeky marketing stats to get your teeth into as well. So really good balance. My favorite takeaway was that 3.24 billion people now use a Meta app every day, which again, big potential. No matter how niche your audience are, there is scope there for finding them on a Meta app. And really interesting, and I would love to get your thoughts on this, Pascal, but again, from the top AI enabled products to maximize your 2025 profits section, which would probably be one of my must watch segments, the idea that 50% of content on Insta is now AI suggested in feeds. So the algorithms are all almost 50% dependent upon the kind of AI systems behind Meta.
Yeah, and ultimately, what you and I, are always asked and challenged, in terms of our customers is, how can I get discovered? If, for example, I'm a new business, I'm a lapsed user, or even if I've been going for a while on Instagram and Facebook and all the others, this idea of being discovered by new customers and prospects, and in a way, the way is has to be AI powered because of the sheer volume of content, and it's going to be imperfect. But then you could argue human intervention is also imperfect. But that's kind of interesting. And for me, when I look back at we've reviewed so many conferences. Although I must confess, perhaps I'm being awfully nostalgic here, I do miss F8. I just think that there was something about it and the way in which they would go through all their properties and announce the changes, and I could actually then forewarn our amazing customers saying, right, this is going to change on Facebook, this is going to change on Instagram, this is what Messenger's doing. And I miss that element of, being more included in terms of their future plans. But, AI is obviously there to deal with the abundance of data and information. And if used well, that kind of works really well. But the one thing that's, I don't know why I was surprised by that, but there was definitely a lot more in and around this idea of the Meta ecosystem, for trading and almost claiming their own unique e-commerce environment. And I don't know why, I just felt it was maybe a bit clearer this year as opposed to just an add-on occasionally saying, yeah, if you really want to, you can make a bit of money on Meta. This year felt a bit more of a clearer message.
No, absolutely. I think it's as competition heats up from things like TikTok creators, and actually I guess the competition between social networks themselves is all about who you're offering the best compensation package to, so that they favor your platform for the content that they're putting out, which means that you are getting more of that original programming, if you will, and you're more likely to start to attract their followers. And we do see famous departures, and kind of, it might be a YouTuber that jumps ship and goes over to Twitch, for example, and makes a little bit of very geeky digital headlines. But it's really, really interesting to see. And I think certainly we are seeing Meta up its game in terms of these are the brilliant things that we are offering you. X at the moment is actually carving out a little bit of a niche within that. These are your creator compensation packages, and we're trying to be really transparent about that. So I don't know whether we're perhaps seeing competitors step up and really kind of keen to keep their relevancy to those content creators.
I want to quickly talk about this term content creators, because I think I can understand why platforms and others will want to, but I just think it's a very dangerous expression, because you could go the way of the term influencer and all the ones before that. So for me, for anyone listening, and by all means, you are a content creator, but I would certainly also try and affix a term that perhaps will elevate your function as a journalist, as a critique, as a educator. Think about those things, because I think content creation just feels a little overused, and as a result, which may lose its impact. But listen, it's not just Meta; LinkedIn uses as well, and all those things. So, when I reflect back on the previous events, there was always a formula, it would seem, of advertising, vertical videos, interacting, answering all comments, and being quite imaginative and innovative in how you do things. And was that still the case for this year's marketing summit?
Yes, absolutely. So, good diversity in the way that information was presented, but very much still around the sort of like, these are the key things that you need to be doing in order to succeed on the Meta platform system. And each one of those had their own sort of exciting, dynamic way of presenting that. So, yeah, it'd be no surprise to know that the kind of the segment about the power of vertical video, which came not long after Instagram had reshuffled all of its grid, causing mild chaos and panic, but actually looked at speaking to, for want of a better phrase, content creators and influencers who are working with brands, just to get their take on the power of vertical video. So it was not necessarily a Facebook lecture, it was different voices brought to the table, but in a way that really demonstrated the power of following these levels of guidance that they do put out at this type of marketing summit, and making it work for your brand. So it might not be a case of you take absolutely everything away and you do all of these elements, but it was definitely some pointers of, you definitely need to be thinking about getting a good amount of original vertical video into your strategy. You need to be thinking about potentially working with influencers if that's going to be beneficial to you. You need to be thinking about, unsurprisingly, it is Facebook, your paid social presence. And we saw them in terms of discussing these key topics, but also making it quite action-packed in the way they delivered that information, and the way that they talked about their cool new AI features for each individual segment. One of the biggest areas of that AI kind of supercharging is definitely in the Meta advert ecosystem. So this was new ways to use 𝗪𝗵𝗪+, which is simply what your AI enhancements are usually referred to, and usually flagged as once you're in the campaign management side of things. But these extend across a wide range of topics. So you can actually use 𝗪𝗵𝗪+ to enhance your audiences, to develop your own data, to improve your creative, or give you creative options to add different elements to your campaigns, and even to measure and benchmark your results. So we're definitely seeing this as a key area in which Facebook says, hey, there's a ton of data within this art of getting your adverts right. And you know what does well with data? AI. And just actually having that, again, as you and I would kind of say to a client, Pascal, about having that benefit of having your AI assistant with you to really help create a few additional options or give you a few different elements to kind of consider when you're putting together your campaigns on the Meta system.
Yeah, so for me, the message is a lot clearer this year, which is in the past, one could have considered advertising as an option that they could just pass and get on with just organic reach and interaction. But I think advertising now is a part of your efforts, and it's no longer an option. So, and the fact that they're making it easier, because of course they have the history of the performance of adverts, good, bad, and ugly as well. That can be a lot easier. I think for me, the second point on my notes is that integration. It's very smooth integration with existing e-commerce platforms, and I think we should definitely take your point about don't just fall into the trap of thinking that the Meta ecosystem is just for B2C. There are many examples where B2B businesses do very, very well. And the interaction may well be just to download a free ebook or to book a meeting and so on. But if you can integrate that very, very well. So the content creators will continue to be looked after reasonably well, from being able to earn a fee from the platform to getting tips from their kind of content consumers, to use the other term. But every year they do keep talking, and I'm in this more like I'm intrigued about the metaverse and everything else that comes with it, AR, VR, XR, and all the other consonants that you can put before the letter R. And I'm wondering whether people are believing it, because they've been talking about this for a decade easily. And is it really making some way into the world of business and marketing, or still remains that project that Mark Zuckerberg like to kind of test?
Well, we definitely see more tangible examples of the kind of metaverse in action, if you will, whether that is something as simple as being able to try on Zara clothes in the metaverse, whether you are picking your new kitchen and you can basically put on a VR helmet and kind of be in the metaverse experiencing your new kitchen space. So we are seeing more examples of that in our purchase journeys and around us as consumers. It does still feel like very, very early days, because while you hear of kind of tech bros making money selling mansions in the metaverse, for mere mortals like me, that is worlds apart from kind of where I am. But I do see these evolving kind of metaverse representations around me, even when I'm not necessarily looking for them. I recently went into the Apple store to kind of see if I wanted to upgrade my phone, and while I was there, checked out their new kind of headset, which looks insane and kind of next level. But really, really interesting to see. It's not gone away. It just hasn't quite come to the forefront yet, would be my kind of take on the metaverse. We do now have legs in the metaverse, so that's been quite a monumental kind of evolution. It's still there. It's perhaps in a way that it's not quite ready for audiences and we're not quite ready for it, but I think it's interesting to see it slowly evolve alongside I guess just everything at the moment, in a way that sometimes there's really applicable ways in which you can use it and you can reference it. Sometimes it does still seem very, very abstract and almost futuristic in a way that we don't quite know how it's going to kind of fit with everything yet. But it's definitely there, and it's definitely worth consideration. And if you are even the slightest bit on the geeky marketing side, it's maybe well worth once or twice a year treating yourself to a 13-minute meta presentation on what the future might be for it.
Sure. And I mean, listen, there are so many applications more in the world of education and training and health and safety. I've seen many examples of people wearing those headsets, which people say are not particularly comfortable, but to be trained about an emergency if you work, somewhere like a factory or an oil rig and that kind of thing. So, I think generally the XR, VR, AR, and all those things have a place. It feels like it's slow progress in marketing and sales and customer service. And I'm just intrigued about it and look forward to the progress being made there. So listen, thank you very much for doing the research and doing the recap. All we wanted to do today was give you a bit of a teaser for you to go into the on-demand. And again, those videos are really well produced. They're not very long at all. But I think, frankly, if you're not thinking about advertising, really, you're going to be left behind. So look into it. If you are in the business of exchanging information and or cash, and think about these e-commerce integrations. And then generally, though, if you are consider yourself a content creator, although be careful about the term, it's going to go out of fashion very, very quickly. So think of a different label, more of a profession and a discipline. Think about, exploiting, obviously, the support that they give you. And I suppose, we're going to close on, there's something that they've always put to the fore with their event, which is side of privacy and security. Now, on one hand, you could say, well, surely they've kind of sorted it by now. Why do they keep bringing it, as a subject matter? But it's because things change. The world is changing all the time. But I will say that for all people, we always find faults with any of those brands. Meta has always been the one to be more forthcoming when it comes to our experience of using their many platforms.
No, absolutely. It's a vital part of, I guess, people's user experience of being on a social network. And the reason that it keeps coming up, I guess, is we are, again, culturally becoming just more and more aware of the ways in which our data can be used, the ways in which these networks store it and use it. So I guess there's definitely value for Meta as a social network to offer that reassurance to audiences and to say, hey, we know that it's still important to you and it's still really important to us as well.
Smashing. Well, listen, everyone, the hyperlink to the official website is in the show notes. So go in there, make an appointment in your diary. Would you say a good 45 minutes? And then you're probably going to choose the sessions that are right for you?
Yes, I think it's well worth having a little look. I mean, you could even, if you wanted to, make a day of it because it has some fantastic additional resources in that particular section. But I think if you are picking maybe 3 of those kind of deep dive videos to watch, you'll definitely be able to clear that off in an hour. And it does have some follow-on reading of the top 2025 trends and the Meta AI and creativity white paper. So if you're going to action them this year, now is a great time to read those too. Just to give you even more work, but I promise it will pay off.
Thank you very much for that. Listen, we're going to speed things up after this deep dive with our next 2 segments. We'll begin with the one tech or tactic to try out just after this. So Natalie and I like to choose a tactic or a tech to make life easier for all of you out there, very busy social media marketers. So Natalie, what have you gone for? A tactic or a tech?
Oh, I've gone for a tactic, but with a little bit of tech in there as well. So I'm keeping it all about Meta today,
Right.
and I'm talking about their new ad reporting templates. So Meta usually has a few different types of kind of automated reporting that you can do, but you can now pull even better quality templated reports specifically on your paid advertising. So these are relatively easy to set up, and if you are someone that runs regular paid advertising on Facebook or Instagram, but you don't check it every single day like some of us geeky people do, but bear in mind, it is my job to do that. But if you want to keep an eye on things at regular intervals, perhaps this is an advert that you don't need to check daily because you run it month in, month out, but you really actually want to get some regular updates on how it's performing, you can set these up so they automatically come straight through to your inbox, which is a great way of just keeping an eye on everything, making sure it's getting the results that you want. One of your superpowers with social media advertising is that it isn't happening happening in real time. You are not hiring a billboard or placing a newspaper ad and you're going to see what you get at the end. You can actually adjust your spend as you go. So this is a fantastic tool for anyone who is a little bit too busy, or perhaps getting a touch, dare I say, complacent in how frequently they check their adverts, to actually make sure you can integrate it with everything else that you've got to go on, and you can keep an eye on your social media paid performance in a way that, okay, if you're happy with that result and you're getting a great click through and a great cost per click, it's brilliant. You don't need to take any further action. But if you get something in your inbox where you think, that might be an area that we can improve, it will give you the superpower and the opportunity to actually change something about it. So great way to seamlessly fit in a bit more of that analytic management right there.
Yeah, that's nice. If you add on to that, the way the dashboard has improved over time, if you add the kind of AI assistance as well. Now, some cynics could say, well, of course they're going to do all of that because they want your money. But then what would you prefer, that they didn't support you at all? So, listen, it is what it is. We're in 2025. Advertising is part now of your promotional toolkit, and you might as well then get all the support you can get from the point of your planning all the way to reporting. And what I like about those templates as well, that means that literally somebody to look at them at the report and then have a very meaningful meeting with someone like you or I, and as opposed to sometime wasting time trying to get the data. So I'm very, very good. But listen, I didn't know, because we do our research separately, so I didn't know that it was going to be so much about advertising. But I discovered an AI platform that can help you put together professional adverts. Think of them as video, almost like what you would see on TV. It's called 𝗧𝗵𝗲 AI, and literally it's like your own photo shoot studio, where what you can do is select a number of templates which are meant to be videos and moving images or GIFs that you could publish as adverts. You upload a product image, or think cleverly about B2B, sorry, could be your book, could be an ebook, could be something that symbolizes what you do. And literally AI will then combine the two, the template and your image, to create a studio quality promotional image with animations and more. And it's really, really quite something. So, you see them on TV done very, very well. If someone's selling like a healthy product, maybe to be used in a shower, and then usually what they do is that the bottle of shampoo, let's say, is slammed on the table, and then you've got the water splashing in slow motion and that kind of thing. So that's the kind of quality image that you get from that. And I think when it comes to advertising, for all you're going to get the support from Meta, let's say, around the reflection stage and the copy and so on. The variable in terms of the success and the appeal of your advert still remains the visual stimuli. And I think platforms like 𝗧𝗵𝗲 AI, and you can search any others by using the alternative2.net kind of website, could give you that kind of high impact. And that to me, it also could become a point of discussion. So maybe you will not naturally use the output from 𝗧𝗵𝗲 AI, but you have a visual that you can then discuss with the design agency and people like yourselves. So I just think, again, it's all about getting new ideas, getting new execution, but in a very busy, noisy world, whether that's the internet in general, social media, you've got to find ways to stand out, and high quality kind of photos and animation, I think, is definitely part of it. Do you like this one?
It sounds great. I'm definitely going to have a little play around with this. This is hard for us because we are not super visual in what we do. So I might be sampling some products just to see the types of kind of shots that it can create, because it sounds absolutely fantastic and you're really selling it, Pascal. So super excited.
Not at all. Here we go. So, new ads report templates from Meta and your own photo shoot studio available to you online with 𝗧𝗵𝗲 AI. Let's move on to our next segment. Always look forward to that one. Important, not important. So I've researched the recent news and recent announcements from our favorite social media platforms, and I've got 8 news items or 8 statements for me to read out to you, at the end of which I want you to state important or not important, and then we'll have a bit of a discussion. So with number 1, since the 19th of February, any new live broadcast videos on Facebook pages or profiles are automatically deleted from Facebook after 30 days. Important, not important?
A little harsh, but I don't think it's important.
Number two, LinkedIn is testing out a new way to potentially drive more engagement in the app by giving users the option to switch to a feed to only show updates from people in their first degree network. Important or not important?
Important for me because I like to stay up to date with my immediate network as well as seeing everything else from all other degrees of connection. So yeah, exciting.
Okay, YouTube is seeing a drastic growth in podcast listening. Actually, I do. With over 1 billion monthly active viewers in the app every month, as more podcasters look to host videos versions of their episodes.
Important, really interesting to see the podcast traffic coming back to YouTube and users looking for video plus audio.
TikTok has launched a 2025 marketing calendar, which includes 15 regional variations, so you can choose the calendar that is most relevant to your target audience.
Important, take it with a pinch of salt. It will be TikTok specific, but there's lots to learn for all networks on these types of things. They're usually a treasure trove of seasonal content ideas.
Next, Instagram chief Adam Mosseri has confirmed that the top 3 signals that matter most for ranking are average watch time, likes per reach, and sends per reach.
Important. There is a lot of that dark activity on Instagram where users are simply communicating, not in the comments, but in the messages. And really interesting to see this level of transparency. If you are creating for Insta, make it shareable and make it watchable.
And one from your favorite platform, Pinterest, has revealed its 2025 Pinterest color palette. We have cherry red, butter yellow, aura indigo, dill green, and alpine oat. These are expected to influence fashion and decor trends throughout the year.
Oh, it's one of my favorites, but Pinterest, this is not important. We again see over predictions from Pinterest. Pantone pick one color of the year. They've gone for multiple, but still, always nice to see a Pinterest headline.
Number 7, Instagram has introduced new direct messages features, including scheduled messages, in-chat translations, pinned messages, group chat QR codes invite, and music sharing within DMs.
I'm gonna say not important. We already know there's a lot of that dark activity on Insta. This feels like features that no one needs nor has asked for, but interesting to see them trying to nurture that area. So interesting, but not super important right now.
And we finish with LinkedIn testing again some in-feed carousels featuring video clips as part of this continued push to increase video content consumption on the platform.
Interesting. Again, not important. A carousel where it's video playing next to video is just more likely to give you motion sickness than encourage you to engage. But interesting to see them follow suit with other networks with it.
So let's go back to the very first one, because that comes across as very mean, from Meta to say, right, guys, not the older one, but from anything that you've published live on from the 19th of February onwards would be removed after 30 days. And of course, the media did what it does best, which is to encourage people to get very upset. But what they've said is literally, we know that within 7 days of your live broadcast, nobody watches the older archived footage. And listen, this is taking a lot of space in our servers. So after 30 days will be deleted. I'm assuming though that most people will know how to download their live session, or it would be somewhere else. So if I think about what we do with Roger, with Restream, StreamYard, and Ecamm Live, we get the local copy anyway. So that shouldn't be a big miss by the live broadcasters.
No, I think what it probably indicates is a lot of people are using that live content to create content that's very, very of the moment, which is one way to kind of create, but probably does mean that actually that content's going out of date quite rapidly, in terms of if it was you or I recording a kind of webinar with top tips, Pascal, that content is evergreen. So maybe we would look at that doesn't need to be a live broadcast, or if it is, we make sure we save a copy. If it was you or I talking about what you might want to do this week with this particular feature right now, in regard to a certain event that's coming up, that content's much more dateable, and probably means that actually when that's in feeds, audiences just don't have the interest in kind of watching it, exactly as you were saying with those particular stats. So what it probably does is overall give video creators a better experience, because for those audience members who are scrolling back on their previous videos, because it's removing those lives, it's giving them that content that is more that evergreen content, the videos that they have just uploaded. Therefore, you're probably more likely to stay on that creator's page and consume a little bit of extra content. So it's probably a case of, it is mean. It's a very mean kind of gesture, particularly where it has been in place and now it's being taken away, because I promise you, no matter how well this is announced, it will be kind of removing the feature for some people who haven't seen the announcement. But I think it's just a case of keeping everything nice and fresh, and it might mean on an individual or business level, we just need to have a reassessment of what is live that is actively downloaded and then re-uploaded at a different date, and what then becomes a studio recording at a convenient time and then is shared on social. So it's super interesting, and means that we as marketers need to do a little more and think a little more, and maybe share this kind of news with those around us who may not have necessarily heard, because there's nothing worse than getting caught out by a social network, particularly if you don't have a copy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That can happen. So I want to continue talking about videos then and talk about YouTube becoming oddly a podcasting platform. And I must confess, this is what's happened to me over the last few months. I find that because I use YouTube a lot, if I come across a discussion, particularly when there's no screen sharing of sort, you can just listen to the host. I can literally let it just play in the background, listen to the audio, but not watch the video. Sometimes put myself to sleep that way. And I find myself using Spotify a lot less, even Pocket Cast and all the others. I find YouTube now serving both me finding videos about the wonders of AI, shall we say, but also listening to a debate or a discussion. Fascinating, isn't it? That's a good move on their part.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's because YouTube is such a, I guess it's, as a video platform, a lot of people are very fond of YouTube. It also has that incredibly powerful algorithm behind it. So in terms of actually showing you more content that you want to see, YouTube is incredibly powerful. So it's great for finding more of what you've enjoyed, in a way that other platforms like Spotify, perhaps sometimes their recommendations aren't necessarily as relevant, and some other networks like X, where some of their recommendations might be polarizing. Actually, there's a lot of value in this digital space for someone that's genuinely going to say, okay, I know you like this, so here's just more of that, in a way that you are going to be able to enjoy it. So interesting to see. I do also prefer at least the option of watching along for a podcast versus the kind of audio only. I know each to their own on that, but I just think, particularly for even kind of presenting, you can do a little bit more, and it's a different experience as a listener as to whether you can kind of see your hosts a little bit. So yeah, interesting and nice to see, and perhaps repositioning YouTube as something that's a touch more relevant in that podcast space, which wouldn't necessarily be my first assumption of YouTube as perception currently stands.
No, you're right. But interestingly, though, when we upload the audio-only version on Captivate with either Roger or Johnny, you have the option to put your YouTube hyperlink so that the video shows on Spotify. So they all try in some ways to kind of blur the boundaries. But I think you're right. It's the affection people have with YouTube. It's been around for nearly 20 years now, I would imagine. So let's talk about Instagram then, and this business of signals. That means that your video would be then shown to others, and this idea of average watch time, likes per reach, and sends per reach. And your point being that, therefore, we still need that dwell time on the video, as opposed to people just flicking that if you don't capture them, quickly enough. Which I think in business is less likely than just that kind of the social video that you have on Instagram. But the likes and the sends, but not the comments. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I think In an Instagram world, and this will be heavily demographic led, but in an Instagram world, we see so much, again, dark activity, nothing sinister. It just simply means that that isn't visible. And it means that perhaps the type of content that we're engaging with on Instagram means that we can engage in a more personal way within our peer groups rather than that sort of commenting particularly for the brand or for the creator. So if you saw, for example, a funny meme about someone who's addicted to social media, you could send that to me, Pascal, and you could say, Natalie, this is you. But you could send that in a message, in which case I might be like, haha, what a funny observation. If you tagged me into it, where my family and friends could say, I might be like, oh, that's a bit mean. And it sort of takes it kind of out of context a little bit. So there's a lot of kind of that intricacy of behavior on Instagram. And as brands, we don't get to see those statistics. We don't get to tap into the ways that people might be talking about our brand, but they're not necessarily talking to us about it. For example, I wouldn't want to comment on a post directly, say from ASOS. If I know my friend is going to a wedding, I know she's got a specific dress for it, and I spot the shoes that would be perfect. I wouldn't comment and tag her in that because the whole world's going to know how much she pays for her shoes and where they're from, but I would send them to her, and there's a lot of that level of activity. So it's really interesting to see them kind of reiterate and say, don't forget about this. It means that as creators, we need to be thinking about the ways in which we could encourage users to like directly on the page, but also to be sharing that content with one another in that peer space, just to really maximize the opportunity that Insta offers in a space where functionality is somewhat limited for users. They can like, they can direct send, and they can tag.
And I think for me, I want to add and complement to what you just said, which is then people be thinking, well, how do I make it happen? How do I get the reaction? And sometimes the default position in people's mind is, I've got to be like the others, a bit loud, a bit brash, a bit comedic, a bit this, a bit that. And in a business setting, people think, well, I'm not sure that works. Listen, I've seen countless number of videos and reels on Instagram of people just calmly explain or give advice, or calmly describe something, or very calmly show something, and they get amazing amount of reactions. So I think we've got to be very, very careful that it's a strange juxtaposition of the social content of people having a great time, shall we say, or telling you about how much they love this movie, whatever, and then the business kind of messages. But they both can coexist. But be careful not to fall for the trap of what's trending. Just perhaps you're warning about the TikTok marketing calendar. But I've seen some ladies giving advice on HR, whether B2B stuff. I've seen people explaining storytelling very calmly. I've seen people reviewing books very calmly, and I mean this generally to let people know that you can be yourself as long as the message is valuable, useful, and helpful to others. You will get the average watch time you need, the likes and the cents per reach.
Absolutely. It's an important thing to remember. And Pascal, can I interrupt you? Can I ask you an important or not important? Because I've just had a push notification on this. So I'm taking control of the segment. I've just had a push notification telling me that Skype is shutting down. We're talking old school social network. Important, not important.
Not important. There's a reason why they're shutting down. It's because Microsoft took far, far too long to do anything about it. But I think it's not their move to Teams, where I think Microsoft missed a massive, massive trick, is not to integrate video calling and messaging within LinkedIn. People perhaps have forgotten Microsoft did buy LinkedIn. They've been very discreet about it, which I think is to their credit, but they missed a trick, that we should all be interacting with each other via LinkedIn, via a Skype-like or Zoom-like experience, and they missed it. They missed it, and I don't know whether Teams will ever make its way into LinkedIn. But yeah, not important. But I will miss the sound of that Skype call that you can all think when I've mentioned. It's like remembering the dial-up sound when you used to go on the internet. And in fact, it's funny when you watch, as I've done recently, old movie from the 90s, and they do a Skype call. And you hear the doot, 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 the Skype, and go, oh, yeah, these were the days. But I mean, Skype used to be clunky, right? It was really
absolutely
hard work. compared to. But yeah, I'm sure that they're going to have mixed feelings about it because what a brand, what a story. But talking about LinkedIn, now let's wrap up on this very quickly. I know that you've been publishing quite a bit of video content on LinkedIn, actually across all platforms, and so have I. So, what is your view? It's not so much, I think, a LinkedIn thing. I think it's more of an audience thing. Are people watching videos as readily as they do on other platforms when they are on LinkedIn? What is your conclusion so far?
I think possibly a little bit less on LinkedIn than kind of other platforms. Certainly, if we were to test it in the Okoko office and say how much visibility do we get on a TikTok video, and I promise we're not doing any funny dances on there, versus how much visibility we get onto a LinkedIn video, we know that it's much easier to get the visibility on other platforms. Perhaps it is less relevant visibility for us as a kind of B2B organization. So we take that with a pinch of salt. We do find that there's often audiences that will watch videos on LinkedIn. If I record a video on LinkedIn, I might assume that it's not been seen very much, but it is the type of thing that people will then say, oh, I saw your video. And I always think, oh, well, you didn't like it or comment on it. But there is definitely the kind of the potential there for reaching and engaging your immediate audience with video. It's perhaps we don't necessarily see that slightly wider tap in on LinkedIn right now to other users, but maybe that's because the users that do watch tend to be those first degree connections and they may not be readily engaging. So we see that video go out, it might get great traction within your own kind of network, but you might not necessarily get that mass visibility where your engagement really kind of snowballs up on other platforms. So yeah, interesting. Not quite as huge potential video wise, but I would say the value in that communication is still exponential for video on LinkedIn.
No, thank you very much for that. Well, listen, we've reached the final segment of the social media newsroom. Always look forward to it. The film marketing social media special just after this. So for film marketing social media special, you chose Batman 1989, directed by Tim Burton with Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson and Kim Basinger. Music by Danny Elfman and Prince. And I apologize in advance, I'll be talking about Prince a lot. I'm a big fan. But before we move on to our recollection of the movie 1989 and the invention of the social media campaign today, let's watch the trailer.
𝗪𝗍𝗍.
Bruce Wayne.
And what do you do for a living?
Lieutenant, is there a 6-foot bat in Gotham City?
Nice outfit.
You look fine.
I didn't ask. I have given a name to my pain.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
Where did you get those wonderful toys?
My life is really complex.
Winged freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me.
Right, does that take you back?
Yeah, and they don't make trailers like that anymore, thank God, to some degree.
It's fascinating, how back then, this would have been seen as an incredible trailer. But decades later, the pace is a bit slower. There's what I call dead time in between the different scenes and so on. But this was the way in which audiences could keep up with what was going on. But this movie is exceptional in so many different ways because it is almost like the ultimate film marketing case study because you had the most extraordinary marketing budget ever. I don't think that Warner Brothers matched it ever since. You had what was called then the Batmania, which was helped a great deal by the fact that this is a much loved character from the DC Comics, but also, and I think that has to be a strategic move to ask someone like Prince to do a parallel album to Danny Elfman's kind of original score with, from the album, I'm going to use memory, so I'm going to get it wrong, but between 4 to 6 of the tracks on the album was top 10 globally, including the Bat Dance. So what a year that was for film goers and film marketers.
No, absolutely. I think it was something that completely broke the mold. And now we are very, very used to kind of a big blockbuster film having an absolutely massive marketing budget. But you're exactly right. It was the kind of the first of its kind in terms of this is the marketing that's behind it, and almost that sort of marketing machine that is just part of the kind of cinematic world these days. It was very much kicking in 1989.
And I mean, there was an attempt to do this form of marketing when Star Wars came out, but actually the studios were not behind it. People must be reminded that at the time, George Lucas actually managed to negotiate, I will be in charge of merchandising. And people just laugh at him, think, yeah, if you want to play with toys, over to you. We'll take care of the traditional form of marketing. So maybe Star Wars would be the one that people think, well, that was similar, but actually it was very different because the studio did not put their hands in their pockets for Star Wars the way they did for Batman. And there was radio teasers, there was TV adverts, there was posters. As a little kind of funny story. So you had the Batman poster everywhere, that kind of the bat with the golden kind of backdrop. And it was Batman this, Batman that. And my mum was actually convinced it was a mouth because actually if you reverse the kind of the kind of shape, you kind of go, yeah, I can see that. But no, it's not, Mum, it's Batman. And so we went with our friends in Bordeaux in France to go and see it. And we dressed as the Joker because, of course, back then you had to be either Team Batman or Team Joker. And when we arrived, rightly so, by the way, the cinema manager asked us to remove our makeup because we went all full on the Joker. So we had white face and lipsticks and so on. And he said, "You're going to take this off because I want the makeup on my plush red velvet seats," which was probably right at the time. But people went behind it around the world. That's why the term Batmania is not overstated here.
No, absolutely. Oh, and what a fond memory that you have, Pascal, of that. Even if you had to take that makeup off before the actual screening itself.
It meant that people didn't get it because we were outdressed in this bizarre kind of, trousers and big hats and big bow tie, like proper like the Joker, but with no makeup. I think people completely missed it. So obviously, I saw it at the cinema. Then back then you had to wait a long time to get your hands on a VHS cassette. Then you had to wait even longer. What I suppose surprised me is, but then you can imagine what would be the case. I don't think there was a 2019 big anniversary screening, like sometimes they would tend to do. So it feels as though it's kind of almost committed to that 1989, the year just before the 90s. But I don't think there's been, obviously, anniversary private screening in independent cinemas, but there's not been that. But certainly, as we mentioned in the green room and earlier, when the Flash movie came out, and Michael Keaton, was back as the Batman. I mean, people went crazy, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely, and rightly so, because what a nice way to kind of nod back to that.
Yeah, Absolutely. It's just that fascinating. And I mean, all the Batman movies are great. Chris Nolan is great. I love the Batman as well. Exquisite to watch. A friend of mine took me to the IMAX. But this one, people still go back to it and could watch it with a bit of a smile because you have to watch it with a bit of nostalgia. But let's move on then to inventing a social media campaign. Let's invent that this movie that came out in June 23rd, 1989 will come out in June 23rd, 2025. And what would we do? And I think definitely if Fiona were to host a meeting at Warner Brothers headquarters, let's go all in and kind of facilitate the discussion. I would urge people in the room to lean on three key elements. Number one, the nostalgia and the origin of Batman as a comic book character, and then go back to and memory is going to fail me, but I'm going to go. I feel like 1930s was the invention of Batman by Kane, but I could be wrong. Please, people are watching, listening, leave it in the comments. So you've got number one, the nostalgia and the fact that Batman has been around for a very, very long time across generations. Number two, of course, the movie production, the actors and the characters. And of course, the music by Prince and Danny Elfman. So we're going to be using those as assets. And then we're going to come up with engaging social media tactics. And what would you suggest we do then?
Oh, what wouldn't we do, Pascal, on this particular one? I think there's absolutely loads. I'll kick us off with a nice, kind of easy to implement for audiences, way in which you could kind of engage. So this was obviously we've spoken about the that iconic logo being absolutely everywhere. Is obviously an echo of the bat symbol being shone up into the night sky. So have a little think about all of the times in your life where actually Batman could pop in and help you out, whether that is you've got a analytic report to write and you've left it too late, whether that is it's a peak shopping time and you are trying to do a supermarket shop and it's too busy, whether that is you need saving from someone who's trying to make polite conversation with you at the bus stop but you're really not feeling it, all the times that Batman can pop in and help you out. Perhaps we need a filter for that where we could actually utilize the bat symbol to get Batman to come along and help us out of our everyday minor inconveniences in the way that only a superhero can. So we get full Commissioner Gordon privileges, and we're actually able to create almost a bit of a cultural moment of when do you need Batman to help you out.
Oh, I love that a lot. So I'm gonna try and suggest something that was used for two different films. So you may remember, do you know about this movie called Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah.
And then there's a movie, one of the Alien kind of chapters called Prometheus, and they actually invented real adverts for LinkedIn and trade publication. So I want you to imagine for a moment that on LinkedIn, the Joker has a LinkedIn profile and is trying to recruit his acolytes and so on, because literally you might as well try and get in to use something that would be unexpected. So very much like the character of Jake Gyllenhaal, Nightcrawler has a LinkedIn profile still available to this day to check, but also the 𝗬𝗎 company who had an advert. I want the Joker to have a LinkedIn profile and put messages and adverts out for people to be recruited by him.
No, it's a great way of engaging. And plus, if you are looking for a job, maybe you would consider that.
What about from you then? Another suggestions, perhaps?
Yeah, so I thought because, like, as we've referenced, Batmania was absolutely everywhere, it would actually be a good marketing strategy to make sure that we had character representation absolutely everywhere. And whether we could do that through a little bit of method acting, because what would be more iconic than Jack Nicholson's Joker on Hot Ones, or actually having these kind of characters popping up at Comic Cons and anywhere where audiences might want to also get dressed up. For example, would we want Jack Nicholson to go along to a Joker lookalike contest a little bit, 𝗬𝗵𝗲
Yeah.
𝗢𝗵𝗲 recently. Would he win it, or would he sadly come as a runner-up in his own lookalike competition? But lots that you could do around the idea of physically getting involved on a character level or on a dressing up as those character levels, because cosplay is a big part of that particular, I guess, kind of audience set of those slightly geeky comic book nerds, myself included in that. And actually, it's a recognized way to engage with a brand and with a franchise. So could we lean in and actually reward that level of audience engagement by giving a few Easter eggs back?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think about my failed attempt at cosplay with that in that French cinema. That's exactly right. So, but actually, very similarly to that, then what you can build up is something we've seen done in other movies, including Day One, A Quiet Place, Day One. This idea of using voice. So the infamous "I am Batman" kind of voices. You could do a kind of a reels competition where people could say those words, and almost the voice that matches most closely Michael Keaton's voice could maybe get an alert or get a bat badge or something like this, and then you could do the other way where you could try and mimic the Joker, and using the phrase from the trailer that we watched a moment ago, that kind of winged freak terrorizes, wait till they get a load of me. And I do like a lip sync battle that you see a lot, actually. It could be a child saying it, but you've got Jack Nicholson's voice. It could be, with your mates and so on. And that kind of voice competition, voice seeking, I think that could be a lovely way to go about it. And just to kind of wrap it up, maybe some randomized filters on all the platforms where you scan your face and you either appear with the Batman mask, so to speak, or you have the makeup of the Joker, and then you're Team Batman or you're Team the Joker, and then you can send that to your friends.
I love that. Are you in your hero or your villain era? Which is it?
Well, what about from you then? I think the Warner Brothers team, by the way, is excited if I was to suggest. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm going to throw it back to, we have been talking on this particular episode about the metaverse and about virtual reality experiences. So if money is no object, thank you very much. What I would probably recommend is one of the most iconic scenes for me. And the first time that I watched this film, I was a kid. And the most iconic scenes was when the Joker and his gang basically go into the art gallery and they kind of spray paint everything. And little 8-year-old me was like, wow, that's so cool. It was vandalism, but as a child, I thought it was absolutely so exciting. But I think you could do some collabs with famous galleries and famous kind of exhibitions and actually do a virtual 3D walkthrough of a gallery that you can explore that has had the Joker and his crew visit it. Maybe they've had a little look at the Mona Lisa, maybe they've enhanced that. But I think that would be a really great way of actually sort of involving other venues that people physically like to visit, that are very, very familiar with, but actually creating that excitement, diversity. It would apply to multiple countries across the world, so you could do it on a kind of location by location basis, but just in a way that made that iconic scene from the movie seem hyper relevant to people within that city, within that country. And just, again, another nice thing to talk about. And also, if you do own a VR headset, it would be something to do in the metaverse.
Yeah, it would be. You could flip it as well. You could, make it educational. So you get let about the paintings or the sculptures being vandalized by the Joker, or you could try and protect them. There's so many different ways you could go about it, and almost have it in different parts of the world. I want to build on that to this idea of a tie-in partnership. So I managed to control myself quite a bit about not talking about Prince all of the time doing this, but we've got to talk about Prince and the album Batman. And I think there's something about partnering up with a video editing company. It could be a mobile, it could be desktop based, but this idea of, as has been done before, actually more of a more traditional marketing, where you take part in a competition where you can register. You can then, with your account, download a number of video clips, perhaps from the trailer and beyond, and then you choose one track from the Batman album by Prince, and you edit to the music and you submit. It gets reviewed by the panel and you with some prizes, and I think that would be just a nice way, because you've got to lean on your assets and not let them just go through. So, and you could do the same with the Danny Elfman music as well.
No, that sounds great. And lots of fun as well. A lot of interactive elements here. You can tell that this is a film that we've enjoyed and perhaps want to interact with more.
And there's one that, as I was listening to you about the online tools and so on, there's one that's been done by a different movie altogether. But this idea of tapping into the bloggers and the magazine, more independent magazines, but also the comic book stores and so on, and ask them to take part in a competition so that they get picked up by the Batmobile to go to the local premieres. I mean, can you imagine? And I'm almost inventing things I want that happen to me, clearly. But, so you're the comic book store, you're kind of this independent, your regulars have voted for you online, there's going to be different ways, and you get picked up by the Batmobile to go to the local premiere. That would go all over the internet and social media like wildfire, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And Pascal, famously, they didn't allow any damage to happen to that Batmobile in this film. So it's still somewhere. And I reckon we could track that down out of a warehouse and out of storage and make it happen for you for sure.
Well, I seem to see versions of it when I go to Comic-Con in London. Although I also saw the van from the Dumb and Dumber, the one that's been done up as a big fluffy duck.
Yes, absolutely.
Making the rounds. And then finally, for me, I was thinking out loud about the retro side of Batman. So I think there's definitely something in there, again, the time with the gaming company around cards, a board game and so on. But also in 2025, people love retro. They love, not far from where you and I live in Newcastle, there's always every year the big massive retro video game weekend. So I was thinking of a retro 8-bit or 16-bit video game where in a very kind of clumsy, cheesy, corny way, you play the Batman and the Joker having to jump over obstacles or drive the Batmobile without hitting anything along the way. But I think that could also be a lovely thing to download. And you were talking about the Comic-Con side, and I'm seeing more and more, as you know yourself, the time with things like Fortnite or kind of takeovers on Twitch and stuff like that. So I think that would be a good thing to do as well.
No, absolutely. Anything that sort of taps into engaging those audiences that are just looking around for things to do with this particular franchise that they love so much, there's huge potential there.
Yeah. So listen, Warren Brothers, I don't know about you, but in the space of 20 minutes, Natalie and I have come up with, nothing short of 10 to 12 different ideas. Can you imagine what we could do for you if we had an entire day? So just think about it. That's all I'm saying. But just to help us wrap up then this film marketing social media special, any key lessons or major takeaways from this discussion?
Yes, I would say definitely think about those brand ambassadors, the people that are your customers who love what you do, who are keen to shout about it, and how you can actually involve them as part of your marketing strategy, make them feel connected to your brand and your business. Sort of links to great marketing always makes your audience feel smart. So lean in and build that synergy. If you notice that there's a particular audience trend, try and get involved in it in a positive way that supports the community that you sell to. And nostalgia is incredibly powerful. We see it all the time now with us adults who actually were told, no, you're not getting a plastic Batmobile as a child, but now we've got our own money for our own plastic Batmobiles or Pokemon cards or Pogs or whatever we want to go back and kind of buy. But the power of nostalgia is absolutely massive. So I think having fun with those audiences and actually, giving them ways to spend their money is actually something that we as consumers all want. So yeah, there's loads that you can do to kind of capitalize on all the opportunities that Batman 1989 might represent.
And of course, in the context of marketers want to become better storytellers and storytellers want to become better marketers, everything we've discussed, whilst we had a bit of fun, would be transferable tactics and skills for any sectors. Just bear that in mind. For us, the film marketing social media special is helping film marketers out there for sure by relating to a movie that they know, but you must pay attention to the inventiveness, but also the link between, what you're going to do and your audience, no matter your sector. Natalie, thank you so much. This has been a great episode again. Really thank you for all the research and your contribution. All of you as listeners, please, thank you again for your support. Do leave comments in the usual places. Until the next time, go out there and make sure your social media is done right. I was Pascal 𝗫𝗺 and she was Natalie 𝗫𝗍. Bye-bye.